Hello and welcome to another Office Hours. Capsule, sorry, blanked out there. About as interested as the CIG narrative team is. Capsule, this is a small section of my Office Hours live stream that I do on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, here on twitch.tv/TheAstroPub and youtube.com/TheAstroPub Live. I'd love to come join us and join chat here as we look at Star Citizen lore, news, and more. Now, recently I did a react content to Inside Star Citizen, because for those of you who don't know, my other channel, The Astro Historian, covers a lot of Star Citizen lore topics. So, and they were talking a little bit about the what I've called the first Pyro-Stanton War, what CIG calls the Save Stanton and Fight for Pyro. So they did sort of a follow-up, because they're going to talk. They've talked a little bit about what's coming up next after this Fight for Pyro thing, which was the Supply or Die event, which is releasing early in March. And they discussed a little bit about their own quite happy results of the event. So I figured we'd watch this. I'm going to let them say this piece, explain, I'm going to be frank, where they messed up, how they can improve, and how it's not quite doom and gloom yet because of other things that CIG has said. But that's going to also be something I'm going to do in a different video where I talk about the monthly report, the roadmap roundup. So without any further ado, let's watch the ISC from February 27th, 2025, Inside Star Citizen Strategic Reserves.
Are you happy with yourself?
Over the moon. Ecstatic with myself.
Their armor was the same with a color difference. There was a mission where we told you to go kill slicer supplies that was the exact same when we told you to go kill frontier fighter supplies.
The data pads I placed around Stanton as well, telling you, giving you hints that maybe something was going on. I think this is a great kind of PSA to read your contracts from now on. Maybe I hid them a little too well. Sorry.
I'm going to react to that later. But all I have to say is Sorry, I did the wrong way. Those were some awful explanations. And you should feel bad about them. Make your missions work, Elliot, and then you can be smug about it. All right.
By now, you will have realized that the Frontier Fighters weren't exactly who they said they were. Or, in other cases, they were exactly who they said they were.
Frontier fighters were specifically designed to show players that we can mess with their morals via this narrative storytelling.
Frontier fighters were the ones who staged the attack on Stanton, posing as slicers to cause an uproar about Pyro, to stage a war on Pyro, to get rid of the criminal gangs that are there.
It was a band of mercenaries led by a woman called Amelia who wanted to start an attack in Stanton to drum up hate for Pyro so that she could get the backing of regular people to go and attack Pyro.
But that also included civilians, and that also included gangs who had no interest in threatening Stanton at all.
So this was a false.
This would be good to know. If it was in the game. It's not in the game. Anywhere in the game. And if any of the narrative team would like to show me where it is in the game, then I will stand corrected. But as far as I can tell, none of this was in the game. That's bad design. That's textbook bad design. But let's let him continue.
False flag operation.
Yes, this was a false flag operation.
And you fell for it. You fell for it.
They fell for it.
They fell for it.
But you named a maniac after yourself.
I didn't do that. Haddock did that.
So our next chapter in March is called Supply or Die. This is split into 3 parts of the event. This is where the CFP and the Headhunters are coming off half the heels of the invasion of the Frontier Fighters, and they're trying to resupply and rebuild to continue the efforts of attacking the Frontier Fighters. This event is essentially a one-shot. You have to play it in March, and when the next patch drops after that, you won't be able to play it again or earn the rewards. With this narrative arc that we're doing for the rest of this year, we're really trying to build these moments in our history where you as the player will come in and experience it, and then if you was here for it, great. But if you wasn't, you've missed out.
Not a bad decision. It gets players to come in, and this doesn't seem to be nearly as narrative heavy as the other one is. And that's where CIG really does have some strong suits, you know. Jumptown, great event, people like it. Siege of Orison, Xenothreat, even the, to a degree, there's Ninetales Lockdown, and then the replacement, which is the Blockade Runners. All good ideas, not really narratively driven, sort of event-driven, actions-driven. That's a good thing. Lean into that, CIG. It's what you're good at. Clearly, it's not telling stories.
For this event, there are 6 new locations that we built, 1 on each of the major planets in Pyro. These locations are discoverable by quantum marker, and at these locations you will find these Outlaw depots. The difference between an outpost and a depot is that an outpost is generally a lot larger in size. There's various things to do at an outpost. It's like a little community that kind of is in one way or another self-sufficient. A depot is really just an offshoot storage location. So in that sense, it doesn't have all the amenities for a local population or for the player as well. It's more of like an offshoot location in that sense.
The depots see the return of the scavengers, the circus, essentially. It was introduced with the ghost arenas.
So this is not a faction we've seen much about, but it's a faction that we can identify by green text and spray paints on the buildings.
So as you go around the environment, you'll see that they've tagged it, and they'll be saying you can get big money here and go.
And where are we going to learn that the names of this organization? Is it just going to be on this ISC and maybe a mission marker somewhere and have no legitimate ties to this location? I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all. I'm not being petty.
Go here and go here, this is where you buy it. Look out here, take cover here. The location is one that they've taken over and they've added their unique twist to.
The Outlaw depots, I think, are really cool from a player perspective through the way that it's a location that is really built for the interaction. It provides a lot of cover. It's located in a more convenient, accessible way. It has very clear, distinct sections, so that helps hopefully as well for the players to kind of call out where the different people are coming from or where they are located. So it's a high-risk, high-reward location that is really built for PvP. There is an initial population at the location, so if you're the first there to show up, you might be a little bit careful. If you're gonna land in the middle, it might be a little bit hot, but that's the right challenge that we're trying to provide for you guys.
Back it up a little bit.
Might be a little bit hot, but that's the right challenge that we're trying to provide for you guys.
All right. Citizen Prosperity. Okay. Okay.
One of the first missions requires you to get a commodity called Death Tree, and there's a mission for CFP and Headhunters. This commodity requires you to go to these depots where you have to invest your own money to get this data tree and return it to either faction that you decided to go with. Datatrine is a rare plant that they can refine, so the CFP can use it for medical purposes, and the Headhunters can use it for more fun purposes.
Elliot came over to the economy area and said, hey, I've got some new missions we're building, and they're a little bit different from some we've done before. So we worked together to come up with a fairly new reward structure specifically for these new missions.
The idea as well is that if you've completed this mission series and you've got your reward, you can just keep going. You can sell these commodities in the sandbox world and get quite a big profit margin. But again, your risk is you have to put up your own money, put in your own time, and risk your own life. For the mining mission,
I haven't fully played Supply or Die. I know it's been in the PTU for a bit. The big question about that one is going to be, is the profit going to be high enough to encourage players to do it? Or is this going to be just a situation where you're barely making enough money? I know CIG wants to kind of mitigate this, but it has to have some reason for you to do it beyond just the cool thing at the end. There has to be some rewards for completing it. But, you know.
again, both factions will require you to get 2 commodities. So they require you to get ice, which can be found on the extremities of the Pyro solar system, so as far out from the sun as you can where it gets colder. Or tin, which is found closer to the sun, that can be stolen, bought, or mined and refined yourself. However you wish to get these, they don't care, they just want the commodity. And then you'll have a destination where you're asked to drop them off. And last is the salvage mission. The salvage mission is asking for RMC, so that's hull scraping, or construction materials, so that's the actual structural salvage part where you have to fracture the ship. And again, both factions are asking for it and they both have their own drop-off points. How you get the salvage is, again, up to you. You can kill ships and harvest their corpse. You could accept the salvage missions and use those ships, or you could just fly about and attempt to find the salvage panels. The event is both PvP and PvE. It takes place in Pyro, so you've always got to have your wits about you. The Detatrine one that takes place at the outposts will have more of a PvP element because it's going to have more reward for people who are PvPing. The mining and salvage one are introduced for more industrial players, more PvE. There's not much you really need to do here PvP-wise, but again, you're in Pyro, keep your wits about you because you never know who's going to turn up.
The thing that's unusual about these missions is that they're designed to encourage group play. There's nothing.
Hold up. Group play. I'll hear him out. But seemed like that wasn't the issue until it was a bug, and then they fixed it, and then the design lead said, "I wanted that. Don't fix it." Now it's suddenly a priority again, huh? Okay.
Stopping you doing it solo, you can absolutely do it solo, although obviously in Pyro you have to take appropriate precautions if you're playing solo. But each of these missions, if you can get together a group of friends to help out, you will probably find that it will be more successful.
Did you unfix that terrible fix that you did last patch?
The initial design of EVR has been fairly successful, but it definitely has areas it needs to be improved with, and one of those areas is enabling group play instead of suppressing group play. And the design intention is to move away from reward splitting. So with that in mind, we're taking steps towards that, and these missions and the way that the rewards are structured for these missions is a good indication of that design intention.
So with all this, the mission reward system is changing, right?
The rewards that you will get will scale with the size of the group that we expect for each mission. So the small missions are designed for solo players, the medium missions are designed for around 4 to 5 to 6 players, and the large missions are designed for 10 and above players. And in subsequent patches, the rewards will scale dynamically to the group that you have. And depending on the mission type that you're doing, whether it's the salvage or the mining or the Detatrine, your rewards will scale accordingly. Bear in mind that for the Detatrine missions, you have to put up the money to buy the commodity, and you will be rewarded enough to compensate you for what you've bought and a little bit extra. The other thing to bear in mind is that all of these missions have a secondary reward mechanic, which is that you are working to get tickets so that you can get the unique rewards, which you can only get during this mission, during this month, and then they will never be offered again.
It's like the redemption at Chuck E. Cheese.
I don't understand the reference, but okay.
I'm an American lost in Britain.
Why does this matter? With our plans for this whole year of more of a content-driven releases and
Why does this matter? It doesn't.
more of a narrative storyline, as Dave previously talked about with the A and B stories, the idea is that these missions will tie into that. The side that you choose to work with will have a lasting impact. The choices you make will define the universe that you live in.
What the? I almost want to just start off right there. That's a lie. That's Elliot lying to your face. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. That's a lie, but okay.
And the really cool thing about Supply or Die is because of the 3 different mission types we offer you, you can get all of the rewards without ever firing a shot. And that's really exciting.
And as one chapter of the continuing fight for Pyro closes, another begins with Alpha 402 Supply or Die. But if you didn't get a chance to finish the February missions, we've extended them through to the end of March, so there's still time to choose your allegiances and secure the future that Pyro deserves. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week on Star Citizen Live.
All right. I was patient. Typically, you have a little bit more people who react will do a little more interjection. I wanted to make sure that you got the whole context, maybe with me being snarky a little bit. So I'm going to start off with the fact that the last time I said this wasn't a bad first attempt, and that CIG should learn from this, and they should definitely improve their practice. And despite the smug, the arrogance that was portrayed at the very beginning, and I don't want to sound like, oh, well, you're just jealous. I chose the Headhunters. I don't care. And most people who chose the Frontier Fighters didn't care about the twist. They just wanted the skins. And that shows you how much of a failure of a narrative that is. Like, I really want CIG to understand that they failed. If your goal was to shock people with a twist, you failed. This is a fundamental failure. You didn't do that. You just made people confused, and with this, just made them mad. And now I know most people don't care, and that's understandable. A lot of people think that CIG shouldn't be doing any narrative whatsoever until they get the game functioning, and I'm kind of one of them. I think CIG needs to experiment a little bit, but I'm not going to beat around the bush. They failed. Like, Starfield has better narrative design than Star Citizen does at this time. Like, No Man's Sky doesn't even have mission design, and they have a better mission design than Star Citizen. Like, it's negative bad. And I only say that because CIG has proven they can do this. Elliot designed the entirety, or was the lead of, Siege of Orison. And it does pretty much everything what people want. It has voiceover for context. It has various stages which are clearly telegraphed. It has a satisfying conclusion, which is challenging but rewarding at the end. He did a really good job with Siege of Orison. This lame twist of the slicers are the frontier fighters isn't a twist. The fact that they said, well, they were wearing they're the same armor type but inversed, as I think Velocity said, it was this brother. It's the same armor set that my faction, that my org wears. Like, you didn't telegraph that. You need to be able to set it up. And I will repeat this again. CIG, you need to improve your storytelling technique. You need to have, if the goal is to tell a story, You need to buy players into the narrative. You need to establish that narrative. You need to set the stakes. You need to set the players, the actors, the characters, the factions, whatever. And then you need to let the story run while telegraphing the things you want the players to know, even if it's more subtle, to allow for players to understand twists. And of course, if players don't like it, you need to give them an off-ramp, because nobody likes to be railroaded down a faction they don't want to follow or a storyline they don't care about. People will just start over if they mess up on a dialogue tree in some narrative games. So like, and will this matter to the people who just want cool skins? No, but it's clear from CIG's own decisions that they want players to have meaningful decisions in these things, because they want factions to matter. So whoever you side with in the factions will then influence who you have access to, where you can go, who you can talk to, so on and so forth, and etc. But they didn't do that with this. You don't gain reputation. You only gained ire. And the only time you gained ire is if you were fighting for the Frontier Fighters. It was just basically like, oh, well, the Frontier Fighters hate you, or hate everyone now, and you chose the bad side for some reason. Like, it was the lamest twist. Now, supply or die, not a bad choice. This has almost no narrative context. It's just faction A versus faction B, red versus blue. That's it. It's sort of just whatever. No one cares. Just pick whatever, flavor of faction you want to and go with it. Like, sweet, awesome. Like, lean into that. If you want to have good experiences with gameplay and give people something to do, then just do that. Don't bother with any storytelling until you actually have stories worth telling, or something, or like a game that is able to handle the stories you want to tell. With that all being said, there is some benefits. I'm going to talk about this more later, but in a different video. But CIG did, in their roadmap roundup, explicitly point out that they're doing mission givers. So mission givers are returning. And that there are some explicit new mission types and mission locations. And a redacted mission type with like redacted armor, a bunch of other things like that. So at least it seems like CIG is moving in that right direction if they want to tell stories, which is good. I am still going to hold CIG to the same standard I've always held them to, and I hope they improve and learn from this situation. I hope, my guess is that this video that we just watched was written and recorded well before the reaction to players basically being like, this entire thing was pointless. I only did this for skins. And a lot of people just gave up on the events because most of the events didn't work. Like, if your missions fail to complete, it doesn't matter. Data pads are not a good way of telling stories. They're good supplements to stories, but they don't tell a story. You need to have something that's very overt, other than mission dialogue. For Christ's sake, you need to have a mission giver that gives you the context for the mission, a context for what's going on, and some flavor of voiceover to tell players what's going on. All right? And it's not new. You've been doing this for a while, CIG. You've done it with other things. Just go back to your roots and remember what you're doing. And for God's sakes, Elliot, before you start getting smug, make sure your missions fucking work. Because they don't work. You can't tell a story. You can't be smug when your missions don't fucking work. All right? So fix your missions, and then let's be smug. All right, with that being said, thank you for watching. As always, I want to hear your thoughts down below. Am I being too harsh, or did CIG really just kick the bucket on this? Do you just not care and only care about skin, or do you want CIG to move more towards this narrative thing? Or is this just all pointless and we should throw out all the narrative and focus mostly on the sort of sandbox content? And of course, if you did enjoy this, join us live at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when it's the release. Like I always say, thank you for watching, and like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.